Hi, this is Prashant Jinde again, and welcome to another lecture in the online series of a subject element of word processing. In today's lecture, we are learning about a shearing, cropping, and singeing process in detail. So let's start with the shearing and cropping process. Earlier, I told you about the object of shearing and cropping. Now let's revise it again. Object of shearing and cropping process is to cut the loose strand of yarn from both surfaces of the fabric with a sharp edged blade. Now this fabric, which you can see over here, this fabric is mainly coming from the gray fabric, right? After exactly a gray inspection, the next process is shearing and cropping. So this fabric is gray fabric, you can say. This gray fabric is having a lot of loose entangled threads. Those are hanging on the surface, both surface of the fabric, right? So it needs to cut, and it is not possible manually to cut individual thread, and that's why we employ a machine named as shearing and cropping. So this machine is having a simple working principle. You can see over here, this is a red color fabric, and there is a shearing roller which is having a blade outside the surface of the shearing roller, and exactly below the shearing roller, fabric is passing very close proximity to that blade. This distance between the roller and fabric is so tiny, so small, that blade just cut the hanging threads and not the fabric. So setting between the shearing roller and fabric is at most important setting in the shearing and cropping machine. Talking about shearing machine, there are two cutting system and four cutting system machines are available in the industry. Let's understand the four cutting system machine in detail. This 4 number is coming from the 4 different shearing roller present in the same machine. So a fabric is sheared from one surface as well as the other surface with the help of 2 plus 2 4 rollers, right? And this is a schematic diagram of the machine. The fabric to be singed is passed over initially a guide roller, and then it passes in between the shearing roller, and you can say there is another blade over here which is a straight line. It is called as a ledger blade. So this machine consisting of a 4 revolving shearing blade placed at the left and right side of this fabric, right, as I already told you. And this placement of left and right side is because to shear the fabric from both the surfaces. If we want to shear the fabric only one surface, we need only 2 cutting systems, right? Only 2 shearing rollers. We don't need the other 2 cutting systems. Why? Because we want only one side shearing. So in our case right now, this machine is a 4 cutting system, means 2 blades, or you can say 2 shearing rollers are placed on the left side of the fabric, and 2 cutting system, that means 2 shearing rollers, 2 shearing blades are placed on the right side of the fabric. Fabric passes in between the shearing roller and ledger blade. You can see over here, this is a dark square patch, is called as ledger blade, and this ledger blade is having only function to guide the fabric properly, and whereas this shearing roller is having a blade. So you can see over here, this is a roller, and these small lines represent the blades, and these lines or blades are rotating in opposite direction to the direction of a fabric. You can see over here, this is the direction of a fabric, right? And whereas the roller, that is shearing blade, is having a clockwise direction. You can see it is opposite, and there is advantage to rotate in opposite direction. Whatever the loose threads are there, those are very close to the surface of the fabric, they can easily be raised and cut out. Okay, so let's go and continue our construction and working process. Now we are what learning is construction and working. So the third point in the construction and working is during its passage, fabric kept flat and shearing blade removes the hanging thread. Yes, during the passage, you can see over here the fabric is constantly flat. There is no slackness in the fabric. If there will be a small slackness, what will happen? The blade will cut the fabric itself, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to happen this thing, so that fabric must keep at very straight line as possible, so that there is a tensioning roller that are providing their jobs. They apply tension to the fabric and fabric remains straight during the shearing process. The next important part in the construction and working is fabric is brushed at the end of the clean adhered thread to the fabric surface. Now, as all we all know that this is the left side of the fabric, right? This is the left face of the fabric. It is sheared by this roller, it is sheared by this roller, so that the left side of the fabric is already sheared. The remaining thing is right side of the fabric, right side of the fabric surface is sheared by these two rollers, and left side of the fabric is sheared by these two rollers. Once shearing is complete, what will happen? Some of the loose thread, they still cut. Okay, they cut already because of the action of blades, but they just stick to the surface of the fabric. They need to be removed out. So a light brushing is there. I have not showed here brushing rollers, but you can consider after completion of the shearing process, these brushing rollers brush the fabric to remove the loosely held cutted threads. Now you can see over here, I have tried to animate those things. This is the fabric, these are the loose threads, and shearing blade is rotated in the clockwise direction, as well as fabric moving in the forward motion. You can see over here, this is loose thread. It is first lifted up, raised up, and then with the 2 to 4 strokes of the shearing blade, it completely removes detached from the surface. And this is our main objective, to remove the blade, to remove the loosely held fibers. Right, you can see over here, I try to animate these things, but you can, yes, imagine how this cutting takes place. So this is all about the construction and working. The construction and working of the machine is nothing but how rollers are placed with each other and how these rollers cut the fabric threads. This is construction and working. It has 4 points. So you just remember, when there will be a question in the examination, write down or describe the construction and working of 4 cutting system. In that case, you should able to understand and able to write those things properly. Once we understand the shearing and cropping process, let's understand the singeing process. Right. Earlier I told you this object of singeing is the process of burning of protruded fibers from the surface of the yarn or a fabric in order to improve the luster and smoothness of the material. This is our main object of singeing. So singeing process is literally burnt out the hairiness of yarn or fabric. And why we need to do that? In order to improve the luster and smoothness of a fabric or yarn. So in this figure you can see, if singeing is not carried out, this could be the result. This is the fuzziness, you can say. This is the highest fuzziness, then lower fuzziness, then somewhat lower, and nothing. So you can see, if these fuzziness, if it is present, the appearance of fabric is really bad. And if it is removed out, the fabric looks good, smooth and lustrous. So singeing process need to be carried out in order to improve the smoothness, the luster, to improve the luster and overall appearance of the fabric. So fuzziness is generated due to the protruded fiber, generally known as hairiness. Why these things is happen? This thing that is fuzziness is happen due to the presence of hairiness. Now hairs, those are protruded out of the surface, they entangle, they form a ball, they form a pills, right, and they form a fuzziness. This fuzziness is really bad to look. Aesthetically this fabric is not appealing. So higher the hairiness, higher will be the fuzziness. So one of the important object of the singeing process is to remove hairiness. We just remove the hairiness, so there is no question of having a fuzziness. So no fuzziness means your fabric appearance is really good, right? So singeing process removes the hairiness. How it removes? By burning it. Literally, this process burns the protruded fibers and make the surface more smoother, lustrous, and it appeal good to the eye. Let's understand why this fuzziness need to remove. Why we won't keep this fuzziness as it is? Why we need to remove that? Because it has certain disadvantages. And what is that? Fuzziness contributes the dull look of a fabric. And fuzziness, and why this dull look is coming from? The dull look of a fabric is because of presence of fuzziness. Fuzziness scatters the light everywhere incident on the fabric, and what we look is nothing but a dull fabric. The basic idea behind the looking a fabric dull is fuzziness scatter the light in all the direction. If light scattered in all direction from any surface, that surface look dull, right? And if someone wants a fabric to look more lustrous, that fuzziness need to remove. Removal of fuzziness increase the smoothness of fabric surface. Why we need to remove the fuzziness? If we remove the fuzziness, then the fabric is providing you a more smoothness feeling. So smoothness. Now look at this blue color shirt. Now if you just see over here, then in that case, and if you feel with your thumb, do you feel the smooth fabric feeling? No, because of this fuzziness or this peeling, you will not get a smooth feeling, right? And to get a smooth feeling, fuzziness need to remove. Third important thing is why fuzziness need to remove. Removal of fuzziness reduce the tendency of peeling, right? Peeling is nothing but a ball of a fiber which is appear on the surface of a fabric, and it will not look good, right, if these peelings are happen. So fuzziness need to remove the peeling tendency. Removal of fuzziness reduce the tendency of soiling also. So that's why fuzziness need to remove. That fuzziness means hairiness. Hairiness, if hairiness is present in the fabric, what will happen? It is quickly soiled. Soil means it can attract the dirt and it can become dirty more frequently. Why? The dirt can easily entrap into these hairs and fabric gets soiled. So what will happen if these things are not present? Hairiness is not present. In that case, the tendency of soiling is very less. So removal of fuzz, that means removal of hairiness, reduce the tendency of soiling. So once we remove this fuzziness, the fabric is not soiled more frequently. It will not get dirty more frequently. And last not a least is removal of fuzziness increase the prominence of printing pattern. So over here in this figure you can see this is a perfectly aged printed pattern, and this is a blurred printed pattern. Do you see the sharpness of edge over here and here? Which one is having a perfect edge? This fabric is having a perfect edge. You can see a perfect edge. Here you can see this is also a printed fabric, but these edges are not sharp. Why? Because of presence of fuzziness. So higher the fuzziness causes the higher blurriness of a printed pattern. Or if we remove this fuzziness, what will happen? You can see easily the clear edges of the pattern, those are printed on the fabric. So fuzziness need to remove if we want to see these edges more clear, dark and prominent. So by this time you understand why fuzziness need to remove. Because of 4 to 5 points, fuzziness actually contributes to dull look. If we don't want a dull look, in that case fuzziness need to remove. Second, fuzziness removes removal of fuzziness increases the smoothness of fabric. If we want our fabric to more smoother, fuzziness need to remove. Third important thing is, if we want our fabric not to look like this, so these are the pills formation. So if we don't want a pill formation, the tendency of peeling one wants to be less, in that case fuzziness need to remove. If one want to fabric not to become soiled frequently, in that case fuzziness has to remove. And if someone wants their printed patterns edges looks more sharp, right, in that case removal of fuzziness is necessary. So by this time you understand why this hairiness or fuzziness need to remove. And which process removes the hairiness? Singeing process removes the hairiness. So singeing improves the luster, singeing increases the smoothness, singeing reduces the tendency of pilling, singeing reduces the tendency of soiling, singeing improves the prominency of printed borders, right? So singeing is very important process. These are the certain advantages of the singeing process. Singeing is carried out in the machine that is called as singeing machine, and it has three sub parts. There are three types of singeing machine. Number one is hot plate singeing machine, two roller singeing machine, and three is gas singeing machine. Let's understand one by one their construction, advantage and disadvantage in details. Starting with hot plate singeing. Here you can see the line diagram of hot plate singeing machine. You can see over here this machine is having two hot plates. These are the curved copper plates. The composition of metal is copper. And why copper? Because copper distributes heat more evenly, and that's why this is a half an inch thick plate of a copper which is heated by the source of heating below this plate. These are the curved plate, right? And this is the direction of a fabric moving, right, from left to right. So let's start and understand the construction and working of the hot plate singeing machine. The machine consists of 2 or 3 copper plates kept at a high temperature using heating arrangement under them. As you can see and observe over here, this machine is having 2 copper plates kept at high temperature of about 1000 to 800 degrees Celsius by using the heating arrangement. Those are present under these curved plate, right? Fabric to be singed guided by the guide rollers and pass over these hot plate. Yes, you can see this is a fabric to be singed, passes and guided by the guide roller and passes over and exactly touching the surface of this hot plate. The fabric is touching the hot plate and then passes over the another guide roller, right? Now during the passing of this fabric from the surface of the hot plate, what will happen? The heat is transferred from the heating source to a hot plate and then hot plate to a fabric. Now that temperature of a fabric is raised and the fiber got those heat through a conduction, and ultimately these fibers get burned out easily because of the high temperature. and singeing takes place. Takes place whenever fabric is passes over this hot plate, and during the passing of this hot plate, these small hairiness of a fiber absorbs the heat through conduction, and ultimately due to high temperature they literally burned out. Right, one side of a fabric gets singed, meaning fiber hairs when touches the hot plate they burns out and removed completely. Now this is a single point over here. Fabric is singed once, and then again it passes over the another guide roller, and again the same process happens twice, and then again the guide roller guides the fabric, and ultimately it passes over the another guide. And once the singeing is complete done, these fabric then guided over the guide rollers and ultimately dip into the water trough. You can see over here this is a water trough, and a roller is placed so that fabric is completely submerged or immersed into the cold water. This step is necessary. Why? Because fabric is already hot and there will be a chances of catching a fire, and that there and because of that, to reduce the tendency of this catching a fire, fabric is immediately placed into a water trough so that fabric cooled off easily, and then it is passes over another guide roller and to the next process. So till now you can understand the construction and working of this machine. Let's understand the advantages and disadvantages of a hot plate singeing machine. Advantages are: one face of a fabric is singed. You can see over here, if this is a fabric, the left side of the fabric is, if this is a fabric, the left side of the fabric is constantly singed, right? You can see over here. That means one face of a fabric is singed in this machine. Next is, no stringent supervision is required. If this machine is going to run, there is not constant monitoring of a fabric is required. No stringent supervision is required. Next is, direct flame is not contact with the fabric, hence chances of rapid burning of a fabric is less. Yes, you can see over here fabric is just touching to the surface of a surface of this hot roll or hot plate rather, and this fabric is not coming directly in contact with the flame, and that's why there will be a less chances to get a rapidly fired up fabric. Next advantage is, high luster can be obtained. Yes, if someone passes a fabric at the tension over the hot surface, in that case luster will be improved, right? The fabric is more lustrous. If someone wants a lustrous fabric, they can go through this type of singeing machine. Disadvantage: fiber hair present in the spaces between the warp and weft, they are not get singed. You can see over here, these are the warp and these are the weft, and there is a small hole present in between them. These are called as interstices between the warp and weft, and fabric is passes over the hot plate. During this passage, the hairs present in between these interstices, they will not get singed. This is one of the disadvantage, right? Fabric just singed over the surface, but the fibers, those are the hairiness, those are present in between the warp and weft, the space in between them, it will not singed by this machine. So this is one of the disadvantage of this machine. Next disadvantage is about uneven singeing due to non-controllable the temperature. So the temperature of this plate cannot be maintained at the constant temperature because of a limitation of a heating arrangement. Temperature of this plate cannot be controlled to a desired degree. So what will happen, sometime there will be a high intensity of flame, and that's why singeing is rapid, good, or sometimes if heating arrangement in such a way that there will be a less heating, and in that case singeing is not properly operated, and that's why uneven singeing could be the result. That could be that this would be the second disadvantage of this machine. Undue luster, right? If someone wants to remove their hairiness but don't want to have a luster, but this machine provides the luster, so this undue luster is coming along with the singeing process. So this is another disadvantage. But if someone wants the more lustrous fabric, in that case, yes, this machine is very good. That's why I keep this high luster can be obtained in advantages, and high luster is also disadvantage, right? Next is both surface cannot be singed at a time simultaneously, you can say. So over here you can see there are the two plates, those are placed side by side, but these two plates singed only one surface of the fabric. The other surface of the fabric is not singed at all. So this is another limitation or disadvantage of this singeing machine. After singeing hot plate singeing machine, let's understand the roller singeing machine. The figure shows the schematic diagram of roller singeing machine. So let's understand the construction and working of it. So machine consisting of a roller which is heated from inside to maintain its outer surface very hot, right? This is a hot roller. That's why the name of this machine is roller singeing. This roller is heated from inside, so surface of the fabric is kept at a very hot temperature. Cloth to be singed passes over the heated roller by keeping constant contact with the top surface. Now over here you can see the fabric to be singed is passes over this roller, top surface of the roller, and making constant contact with this top surface. So what will happen if fabric is moving like this? Its bottom surface is gets singed because this bottom surface is in contact with the hot roller, and the direction of hot roller is exactly opposite to the direction of passing the cloth. You can see cloth is passing from right to the left, whereas roller is moving from left to the right. Over here the fabric is singed at the top surface of this roller. One face of a fabric gets singed. Second singeing takes place at the bottom of the hot roller. Yes, there are two times singeing takes place. The top surface of the roller and bottom surface of the same fabric is passes over the top surface of this roller, and then guided through the guide rollers, and again second time it touches the bottom surface of the same roller, right? So the fabric gets singed second time from the single roller, right? And then it moves to the water trough. Fabric is singed one, fabric is singed twice, so twice fabric singeing takes place from the same roller, and then one singeing takes place is passes over the guide roller and move into the water trough. As we all know, the water trough is needed because the singed fabric is very hot and there will be a chances of catching a fire, and to avoid these instances the fabric is immediately dipped into the cold water and the temperature of fabric is lowers down, and once its dipping completed it is then passes through the next process. Let's understand the advantages and disadvantages of roller singeing machine, starting with the advantages. Here only one face of a fabric is singed. As I already told you, this if it is a fabric, then in that case the bottom face of the fabric is singed. Again the same bottom face is singed again, twicely singed. So this is advantages that a same roller can give you 2 times singeing of a same fabric surface. This is the advantage. Second advantage is no stringent supervision is required. Next is direct flame is not contact with a fabric, hence chances of rapid burning of fabric is less. I think probably the advantages are very similar like your hot plate sensing machine right now. So obviously fabric is not directly coming in contact with the flame, and that's why the fabric is in contact with the hot surface, not a flame, right? And that's why a rapid burning of a fabric is avoided. High luster can be obtained, as I already told you. If a fabric is passes over the hot surface with a friction, and that case fabric got luster, right? Over here also fabric is constantly passes touching over this hot roller constantly, it will generate a friction, and that's why luster is improved. If anyone wants a high lustrous fabric, in that case roller singeing is one of the good option. Let's talk about their disadvantages. Fiber hairs present in the space between the warp and weft, that is interstices, is not singed. It is very similar like this advantage is also similar like a hot plate singeing. Yes, this roller fabric is just touching the surface of the roller, and that's why the fibers or the hairiness those are present in between the warp and weft interstices, it will not get singed properly. Second, uneven singeing is result of uncontrolled temperature of a roller. So temperature of the roller, if one cannot be maintained at a constant level, there would be uneven singeing. Third is undue luster. Yes, if someone wants fabric not to be lustrous, in that case this process inevitably provides you luster, and that could be a disadvantage. Let's talk about the gas singeing machine. Let's talk about the gas singeing machine in detail. So starting with the construction and working. The machine is consisting of two or more burners, or here you can see there are four total burners. Those are placed at both sides of the fabric. Now these burners produces the uniform flame, and this flame height and width can be adjusted by adjusting the slit from which they are coming out, right? So the slit can be smaller, or that slit width can be bigger, and according to that flame height and flame width can be adjusted accordingly. Next is fabric passes over the flame at a high speed. Yes, there is no surface contact, the fabric is constantly passes over the flame, actually flame. Yes, and flame impregnates into the interstices of cloth and burns the hairs. Now when fabric is passes over the open flame, in that case the fibers or the hairiness those are present on the surface, not only the surface of fibers get burnt out, but also the fibers those are present inside the interstices between the warp and weft, they also get removed or burnt out completely. Why? Because flame can impregnate or penetrate into the fabric directly, so the spaces or the void those are present between the warp and weft, flame can easily penetrate in between them, and the fiber those are present or the hairiness those are present in the interstices gets burnt out easily. Once the singeing done, fabric passes through a water trough, and as we all know that why this trough is necessary, because the fabric is hot and there would be a chances of catching a fire, and to avoid these instances fabric need to cool off immediately, and that's why fabric is immersed into a water and then passes to a next process. Hood and exhaust fan arrangement is provided to suck out all the burnt hairs. So whatever the burnt hairs, those are ashes, right? So these ashes need to pass through this hood with the help of suction fan. If this hood and suction fan it would have been absent, what would happen? These burnt hairs they fly away in the department and again sitting down onto the same fabric. So we don't want to do that. So immediately whenever fiber burns, these burning fibers, these are the ashes, need to exactly suck out through this exhaust fan. So this arrangement is inevitable, mandatory. Let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of this gas sensing machine. Starting with the advantage, both faces of the fabric can be easily singed. You can see over here the burner is placed at the right of the fabric and this burner is placed at the left of the fabric. So two burners are burning the hairs from right face of the fabric, and these two burners are placed on the left side of the fabric. They are removing or burning the hairs from the left side of the fabric. So both faces of the fabric gets singed easily. Next advantage is uniform singeing of cloth is obtained. Yes, fabric is directly contact with the flame, and that's why there should not be an uneven singeing. So instead of one burner, there are four burners. So these four burners take cares that uneven singeing is not the result. Next is no unwanted luster. Yes, over here there is the biggest advantage. If someone wants a fabric without any luster but it needs to be singed, in that case gas singeing is one of the preferred option. Why? Because fabric is not touching to any kind of hot surfaces, and there would not be any kind of friction between the hot surface and a fabric, right? And that's why there is no luster. Fiber in the interstices also burned, as I already told you. Higher machine speed, that is 125 meters per minute. Amongst the hot plate, roller singeing, gas singeing is one of the highest productive machine. Flame can be controlled according to the width of the fabric. So if width changes, flame width can be changed accordingly. What is the disadvantages? Strict supervision is required. There should not be any negligence in case of supervision. Constantly operator has to monitor the machine. Operator should be skilled one, and it should be with a proper gears. Need a firefighting equipment very close to this machine in case of any accident that or chances of a fire. In that case, flame extinguisher need to place near the machine. So in industry, this machine is working at a very high speed, and gas sensing machine need to have precautions to be taken. So what are these different precautions or cares need to be taken? Arrangement must be provided to stop the supply of gas to the burners when fabric fails to move. What will happen if electricity goes away? All rollers are stopped, but this gas or the flame is continue to run, right? This flame does not require electricity. In that case, rollers stop moving, fabric is also stop moving, but burners will start continuing. It is as good as we are burning the fiber literally, right? So in case of power failure, or in case of there will be a failure of movement of a fabric, in that case this gas supply to these burners need to be shut down. So this has to be a take precautions. So overhead hood must have exhaust fan to suck out all the burnt fibers, right? It must have a hood with equipped with the exhaust fan, right? Why we need to have an exhaust fan? This exhaust fan suck all the burnt hairs. What will happen if exhaust fan is absent? In that case, whatever the fly ashes are there, those are again depositing on the same fabric, and fabric appearance would be in question. So exhaust fan need to be equipped. Fabric taken for singeing must be dry. It should not be a wet. That has to be, this precaution has to be taken. Otherwise, there would be not correct singeing, or that flame is used to evaporate the water present in the fabric rather than burning the hairiness. Temperature of the cloth must be measured frequently, right? So there should not be an undue raise in the temperature. So it has to be strictly monitored. Speed and quality of this singeing machine can be observed frequently. These are the certain precautions. Right now I'm going to show you a video, a live machine over here, how singeing takes place. So just watch this video. You would able to understand how singeing takes place, especially gas singeing takes place. Gas singeing is also applied in yarn form. Earlier, we learned about how gas singeing works in the fabric form. But if someone wants to have a yarn to be singed, so yarn is also gas singed. This process is called as yarn gassing. So why there is a need of yarn singeing if we do have a fabric singeing already? So certain application demands a singed yarn, like knitted fabric, sieving threads, high twisted voile yarn. These are the certain application. In that case, yarn has to be a smoother one. It should not have any kind of hairiness. Let's say example, sieving thread. So sieving thread, if you observe closely, it is gas singed, or you can say their hairiness is removed completely. Right. And why it is so? Now, sieving thread is used in a garment, and once garment is created, should not be any singeing process afterwards, right? So, in the garment form, fabric is not singed, so the sieving thread has to be singed. In that case, yarn is singed. Though fabric singeing is common in wet process houses, yarn singeing is done in the winding department prior to wet process houses. So let's understand the construction and working in a simple language. Yarn to be singed is passes through the series of small guide roller, tensioner, and then gassing chamber, cooling plate, and ultimately passes through the drum grooves and finally winds onto the cone or a package. Here, open flame gas singeing is used to burn hairiness present in the yarn. and each component has their own significance in this machine. So let's start and understand visually how this singeing machine works. So you can watch this video till the end.